The U.S., Japan, and European countries request a UN Security Council meeting on the North's recent attempt to launch a spy satellite deemed a violation of UNSC resolutions. Asia's highest-level defense talks, the Shangri-La Dialogue, kicks off in Singapore with South Korea's defense minister to meet its counterparts in the U.S., Japan, and China. South Korea's inflation drops to its lowest since October 2021 at 3.3% in May on falling oil prices. Utility fees remain on an upward trend.
Good afternoon. Following North Korea's attempt to launch a spy satellite that ultimately failed, the U.S., Japan, and some European countries called for an emergency UN Security Council meeting. They see the launch as a violation of UNSC resolutions as it involves using ballistic missile technology, which the North is banned from using. Our Shin Se-byuk reports.
The UN Security Council has received calls to convene an emergency meeting in light of North Korea's latest satellite launch attempt. This is according to President of the Security Council, Lana Nuseva, on Thursday, following Pyongyang's attempt on Wednesday to fire a reconnaissance satellite into orbit. The attempt failed but has prompted widespread security concerns among the international community. According to Nate Evans, the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the United Nations, the request was made jointly by the United States, France, Japan, and others. Whether or not a meeting will take place will be decided after consultation with UN member states. Meanwhile, the U.S., South Korea, and Japan are further bolstering their trilateral cooperation after Pyongyang's botched spy satellite launch attempt. During a commencement address at the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado on Thursday, U.S. President Joe Biden said the allies are cooperating to strengthen deterrence against threats in the Indo-Pacific region, including North Korea. When it comes to China, Biden said Washington does not seek conflict or confrontation with Beijing. While saying the two sides should work together to solve some global challenges, Biden said the U.S. is prepared for competition and will stand up for its interests and values. And U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin called North Korea dangerous and destabilizing and said the U.S. is with its two Asian allies to safeguard peace in the region against North Korean threats. This came during a joint press conference after meeting with his Japanese counterpart, Yasukazu Hamada, in Tokyo on Thursday.
We stand with our Japanese and ROK allies in the face of North Korea's continued provocations. And the United States will take all necessary measures to ensure the security of our homeland and the defense of our allies.
The Japanese defense chief also emphasized the importance of trilateral relations to better respond to North Korean threats, including any other attempt by Pyongyang to launch a satellite. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
In the meantime, South Korea and the U.S. have issued a joint security advisory on North Korean hacking group Kim Soo-ki. The group is accused of extracting intelligence and technologies linked to the regime's weapons and space developments. Lee Seung-jae has more.
In response to the North's failed space rocket launch to put its military reconnaissance satellite into space, South Korea on Friday imposed unilateral sanctions on a North Korean hacking group. The fresh sanctions have been imposed against the group known as Kim Soo-ki, which Seoul's foreign ministry says is a unit within the Reconnaissance General Bureau, the North's military intelligence agency. The hacking group is accused of extracting intelligence from individuals and institutions in the fields of diplomacy, security, and national defense, and handing it to the North Korean government. Kim Soo-ki is also known to engage in acquiring cutting-edge technologies related to weapons development, satellites, and space technology globally, while also directly or indirectly contributing to Pyongyang's satellite development project. Authorities say the group steals information using spear phishing, which mainly uses emails and websites. Seoul also issued a joint security advisory with Washington to warn the international community of the hacking group. It provided detailed information about the hacking techniques used by the group while recommending that precautions are taken against suspicious activities to prevent potential damage. The joint advisory was released together with South Korea's National Intelligence Service, the Korean National Police Agency, and South Korea's Foreign Ministry, along with the U.S. FBI, the U.S. State Department, and the NSA. The latest sanctions mark the world's first unilateral sanctions against Kim Soo-ki and is the 8th unilateral sanction against the North since the start of the Yoon Suk-yeol administration in May 2022. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Singapore, Asia's highest-level defense talks, the Shangri-La Dialogue, is underway. South Korea's defense minister is scheduled to meet his counterparts from the U.S., Japan, and China amid North Korea's increased provocations. Our defense correspondent Kim Hyun-sung tells us what to look for.
This year, defense ministers from roughly 40 countries will gather at Singapore's Shangri-La Hotel to hold major defense talks. Here are some of the most anticipated discussions. With Seoul and Tokyo patching up relations lately, so are the defense lines. South Korea's defense minister and his Japanese counterpart are poised to hold talks for the first time in 4 years, marking a potential thaw in frosty diplomatic relations. The two have been held in an icy deadlock since the 2018 Japanese patrol plane incident. Tokyo accused the South Korean Navy of violating naval code by allegedly locking its radar onto the plane flying at a low altitude. South Korea denied these claims and instead condemned the Japanese patrol plane for its provocative 8-shaped flight pattern at the time. After failing to find common ground about this issue for years, the upcoming face-to-face between the Seoul-Tokyo ministers hold the potential to finally bring about a settlement on this diplomatic dispute. Another key point is dialogue on North Korea. With Pyongyang's provocations growing increasingly bolder, the regime is expected to be the ongoing talking point. In three-way talks between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo, these countries may discuss ways to bolster their defenses against any potential attacks. A collaborative real-time missile alert system may likely top the agenda. As for the wider region, China will most likely be grabbing the headlines. In a rare occurrence, China's defense minister Li Shangfu turned down his American counterpart Lloyd Austin's calls for a one-on-one meeting. Tensions have escalated, especially with the two countries in gridlock over the issue of Taiwan. It remains to be seen what China's stance will be and whether it will propose a new defense strategy. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Now back here at home, South Korea's southern island of Jeju is hosting the annual Jeju Forum, with this year's event focused on the need to beef up international cooperation against North Korea's evolving threats. Our foreign affairs correspondent Choi Min-jung reports from Jeju.
The Indo-Pacific has become a new center of global cooperation in addressing multiple security threats, especially with continued nuclear threats from North Korea. Speaking at the opening ceremony of Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity 2023 on Thursday, South Korean Prime Minister Han Duk-soo stressed the importance of the three-way alliance between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo for the peace and prosperity of the region.
The biggest threats to the Indo-Pacific region today are North Korea's nuclear threats and missile provocations. Through trilateral cooperation and international solidarity, we intend to strongly block North Korea's provocation and pursue the denuclearization of North Korea.
Former Secretary General of the UN Ban Ki-moon urged the international community to work together given the challenging global situation.
The global challenges before us now are unprecedented. Any individual or country, however strong or resourceful one may be, cannot solve such problems alone.
Speaking at a session on expanding global cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, South Korea's second Vice Foreign Affairs Minister Lee Do-hoon shared how South Korea plans to contribute to the Indo-Pacific. The official said one way is to strengthen non-proliferation and counter-terrorism efforts across the region, as North Korea continues to pose serious security threats.
In this regard, we condemn North Korea's so-called military reconnaissance satellite yesterday and clearly reaffirm international community's determination to denuclearize the North outweigh North Korea's nuclear ambitions.
This year's Jeju Forum was held under the theme of working together for sustainable peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific, with the strategic importance of the region rapidly increasing with regard to global security and prosperity. On top of security issues, leaders and experts also called on the need to tackle common challenges like climate change, supply chain issues, and widening digital gap. Choi Min-dong, Arirang News, Jeju.
The heads of 47 European countries gathered on Thursday to discuss the Ukraine war, including further support for Kyiv. At the press conference of European Political Community Summit held in Moldova, Ukrainian President Zelensky said he received strong support from participating countries on the fighter jet assistance without unveiling details. While thanking Moldova for accepting war refugees into the Eastern European country, Zelensky also said Ukraine is ready to join the EU and NATO. South Korea's inflation drops to its lowest since October 2021 to 3.3% in May on falling oil prices. But utility fees remain on an upward trend. Our Lee Soo-jin has the details.
Inflation in South Korea continues to ease, falling to the lower 3% range in May. Data from Statistics Korea released on Friday shows that the Consumer Price Index, a key gauge of inflation, rose 3.3% on year. That's the lowest figure since October 2021. Inflation has been on a steady decline for 4 straight months after rising slightly in January. This slowing of inflation is largely due to the on-year drop in oil prices, mostly due to base effect from the sharp rise in prices during the first half of last year. Prices of petroleum products also plunged 18% compared to the previous year. That's the sharpest on-year drop in 3 years. Prices of agricultural, fisheries, and livestock products also dropped 0.3% on year. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy price changes, also slowed to 3.9% last month compared to the 4% recorded in April. The agency is forecasting that prices will continue to stabilize.
There are uncertainties regarding international commodity prices, oil prices, the global situation, and exchange rates. But if there are no special circumstances, prices are likely to remain stable for the time being.
However, electricity, gas, and water prices surged more than 23%, marking the second consecutive month that the utility fee increases have been in the 20% range. And the cost of dining out has rose nearly 7% on year. Also on Friday, the Bank of Korea held a meeting regarding consumer price growth. An official projected that inflation growth is likely to continue to slow until the middle of the year, falling to the 2% range before rising back to the 3% range towards the end of the year. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Despite sluggish semiconductor exports, South Korea's economy expanded in the first quarter on an increase in auto exports and private spending. Our Moon Hae-ryun has this report.
South Korea's economy narrowly avoided going into recession as it recorded growth in the first quarter of this year. According to data released by the Bank of Korea on Friday, the country's gross domestic product showed growth of 0.3% on quarter between January and March, the same as the advanced estimate given at the end of April. The country showed economic growth for 9 consecutive months from 2021, but with a downturn in exports, recorded a contraction of 0.3% in the fourth quarter of last year. On year, however, the first quarter of this year only saw a 0.9% growth.
Growth on year in the 0% range is low, and we have entered a period of slow growth with the annual rate itself falling, unlike high growth rates in the past.
With the latest data, the agency attributed the turnaround to a rise in private spending on the back of eased COVID-19 restrictions. Spending on dining and accommodation, as well as recreational activities, saw 0.6% growth this quarter compared to the previous quarter. Government consumption also expanded by 0.4% on the back of increased spending on social security benefits, despite a decrease in expenditure on goods. And despite sluggish semiconductor exports, exports overall grew by 4.5% as auto exports saw significant growth, an increase of 0.7 percentage points compared to the growth recorded last quarter. However, facility investment fell by 5% due to a decline in machinery investment. Meanwhile, the country's gross national income, the total amount of money earned by people and businesses, rose by 1.9% on quarter. The Bank of Korea also released their overview for national accounts in 2022, showing that GDP increased by 2.6%, the slowest pace since the pandemic broke out in 2020. The central bank also lowered this year's economic growth outlook to 1.4%, with an extended slowdown for exports looking likely amid an ongoing global economic slump. 문혜련, Arirang News.
In the meantime, finance authorities believe there are signs of a recovery in exports as a place to boost investment ties overseas, namely in the UAE. Our finance correspondent Lee Dae-young reports.
South Korea's finance ministry sees some positive signs in the country's exports. Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho on Friday held a meeting where he mentioned factors such as increased exports to China that are contributing to the country's overall export recovery.
Exports to China, which has been one of the major factors for sluggish exports, have reached the highest level this year. Chip exports too also improved in May compared to the previous month despite a price drop.
Exports of car and secondary batteries, the minister said, are also boosting exports. Daily average exports in May surpassed $2.4 billion for the first time since last October. However, the minister also warned of remaining uncertainties such as the global economic slowdown. UAE investments were also on the table during the meeting. Chu said South Korea will continue to strengthen investment cooperation with the UAE to attract more financial investment to Seoul. Back in January, the UAE pledged to invest $30 billion in South Korea and announced 6 priority sectors to invest in, including the energy and ICT industries.
The government will initiate dialogue with top financial officials of the UAE, hold investment briefings, and expand support for these investments through the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency.
Ways to swiftly roll out some of the pledges made during the recent summits were also discussed. These include increasing flights to and from Japan to 1,000 per week by the peak of the summer season, while establishing bilateral dialogues in chips, energy, and other technologies to strengthen the supply chain. Alongside Indo-Pacific nations, joint studies on critical minerals will begin, while support for Korean companies to advance into these countries in the clean energy and nuclear power plant sectors. Also mentioning the IPEF countries' agreement on supply chain resilience, Chu says Seoul's economic supply chain risks are also expected to ease. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
South Korea has advanced to the quarterfinals of FIFA U20 World Cup. The nation's under-20 men's team in the round of 16 on Friday defeated Ecuador by 3-2. South Korea got off to a good start, scoring twice in the first 20 minutes in Argentina and held off some late pressure from Ecuador to win the match. Korea will now play quarterfinal on Monday against Nigeria. The two have previously faced each other twice in the U20 World Cup, in 2005 when South Korea won and in 2013 when Nigeria were the winners. While South Korea continues to struggle with the oversupply of staple grain, there seems to be a way to solve the issue. Organic rice snacks for young children. Lee Eun-jin has the story.
It's snack time at a daycare center. The children are holding puffed rice snacks, all of which are made from domestic organic rice.
Children in this age group actually eat more natural organic foods than foods with high additives.
These organic rice snacks have been made to cater to the different growth and development stages of children.
We use organic rice, and because we make snacks for children, our hygiene is exceptional.
A big advantage that these organic rice snacks have is that they're not covered with oil or powdered sugar, so it doesn't make their hands sticky or result in powder flying everywhere. There's also rice popcorn for children at the stage where they put everything they pick up into their mouths. Rice snacks in stick form are also popular because it's a favorite with children, and one stick will last kids a long time.
We make the rice snacks with organic brown rice, different snacks for infants 6 to 12 months old and toddlers up to 24 months old.
Because these snacks are for children, only organic brown rice produced domestically in regions like Damyang or Yeonggwang counties is used.
Overproduction of rice has led more companies to commercialize processed rice. We are actively seeking potential companies to work with the rice industry.
This company's sales have jumped over the past 2 years. This means that they're expected to use roughly 130 tons of domestic rice this year, which is 30% more than last year. 이은진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. The United States and Taiwan have signed a new trade deal. The agreement announced on Thursday is the first under a framework made last year called the U.S.-Taiwan Initiative on a 21st Century Trade. This first deal is meant to streamline customs and border procedures and cover regulatory practices and small businesses. Later agreements may include agriculture and digital labor. The new deal comes against the backdrop of increasingly strained relations between Washington and Beijing. It's hoped the deal will make Taiwan more resistant to economic pressure from China and increase the island's U.S. imports. In Ukraine, at least 3 people, including an 11-year-old girl, were killed by an overnight missile attack on Thursday in the capital, Kyiv. They were reportedly killed by falling debris while struggling to enter a locked bomb shelter. Kyiv's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, described the incident as a crime and said such shelters should be open at all times. An investigation has been launched. The overnight missile attack also injured 14 others and is the 4th such attack this week. According to Ukrainian officials, Russia launched 10 missiles and all were intercepted, causing the deadly debris. There were also reports of fires and damage to buildings. Turning over to Jordan, which is celebrating the marriage of its crown prince. In a royal ceremony at Zahran Palace in Amman on Thursday, Crown Prince Hussein bin Abdullah married Rajwa Al Saif. Al Saif is an architect from a prominent Saudi Arabian family. Guests to the wedding included Britain's Prince and Princess of Wales and US First Lady Jill Biden. The day was declared a national holiday and even saw a free concert being held at Amman International Stadium. The marriage is widely seen as a way to boost ties between Jordan and Saudi Arabia. And finally, in sports, Sevilla FC have won the Europa League for a record-extending 7th time. The Spanish football club beat Italian side Roma 4-1 on penalties after a 1-1 draw on Wednesday at Puskás Arena Stadium in Hungary. Roma's Paula Dybala drew first blood in the 35th minute. But Sevilla equalized in the second half with an own goal of Roma defender Gianluca Mancini. Sevilla have now won the UEFA Europa League, or its predecessor, the UEFA Cup, 7 times, which is 4 more times than any other club. After the match, Roma manager Jose Mourinho leveled verbal attacks at match referee Anthony Taylor in a car park while leaving the stadium. Taylor was also confronted by Roma fans at Budapest airport. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The first day of June offered summer weather in central regions, but much prettier conditions in the south. But summer heat is expected nationwide today, and some of southern provinces are having afternoon highs jumping 8 to 10 degrees higher than yesterday. After a cloudy start, skies have gotten much brighter, but some of the inland areas need to brace for 5 to 20 millimeters of passing rain along with thunder and lightning during the day today. And those in southern parts of the country must be welcoming seeing sunnier skies after days of rain and murky conditions, with highs reaching in the upper 20s this afternoon. And we are having breathable air quality nationwide today. And finally, we have a sunny weekend with tones of summer warmth nationwide. So if you are planning outdoor activities this weekend, sun protection is a must. And also, you might want to take out all your summer clothes this weekend to get ready for the hotter season. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend.